All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Dysfunctional Fitness Podcast. You're joined today by myself, Matthew Hosking, and my good friend and co-host Ben Bodycom. Yeah, we're back. It is post 2023 CrossFit Games. It's about a week and a half since it's all concluded. A lot of drama. I feel like it's quite a dramatic games. Maybe the last day fizzled out a bit, maybe because of the race, but just other storylines that happened. But yeah, a lot of interesting things happened over the weekend. We'll get into it all. But yeah, so I think
I
today
think
the
it was
plan
it was
is
quite an emotion. It was quite an emotional games as well,
it was
wasn't
it was far too emotional for me, far too emotional, too many tears. I did ask for Medeiros tears in our preview, but I didn't actually think we'd get some. So that was interesting on the first day as well. People were literally weeping. People were weeping at his his post workout interview after the handstand walk one. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But yeah, so I don't know what else to say, to be honest. And it got more emotional from there. I didn't think that was going to be like level one and it was going to get just ramped up. But yeah, still a really good event. But yeah, plan the day. We're gonna just recap some of our predictions we made and see how far off we were, which I think on the first glance I think we were a bit. And then yeah, just go through some of the storylines, look at some of the programming, and then yeah, obviously highlight some of the UK and European people on the back end. But that is pretty much it for the day. All right, we'll get into it. Ben, you've been crafting a lovely spreadsheet, so why don't you hit us with the facts of how far off we were with our predictions?
it? So just run through who we both had in the top three for each division, and then we'll sort of call out like the most egregious differences from there on. So I had a full European podium, which did not transpire.
Mm-mm.
I had Laura Horvath, Annie Thorisdottir, and Gabby Magala. You had two Europeans and an American woman, and ironically, neither of us had the American woman who did end up on the podium. Which I will address it in a moment. Annie Thorisdottir, you had Annie in first, Laura in second, and Danielle in third. So we were both like a little bit out on there. I think we both had Annie placing that high. She actually landed 13th overall. Did you get some interesting vibes from Annie? Like I think I got a lot of happy to be there kind of vibes, happy to be healthy kind of
Yeah, that's
vibes.
the only thing I saw in like the behind the scenes
Yeah.
videos. Actually, just I can't remember who it was. Someone asked her, like, "This is the fittest you've been," and she's like, "Yeah, in some ways." And then she just gave me,
Mm.
as you said, more happy to be here vibes and actually fighting for a top spot. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is just the back end of a career. So maybe this is just the state you'll be in now for the next few years. Just ride it out. Just if you can still qualify and you just love,
Mm.
competing and just going to the games, then fair enough. Just keep doing that. But yeah, maybe shift in mindset. Maybe not that fussed about fighting for podium anymore. Who knows? But yeah, I was quite surprised she finished that low. But especially with the events, like we'll get into it. There's some of the events I think would suit her quite well. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about her in more detail later. Obviously, the glaring omission from both of our top tens was Ariel Lowen.
Mm.
I may have said some things I regret about Ariel Lowen in the past. I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong. The more I've been exposed to her, the more I've seen her give interviews. I would like to downgrade my feelings of hatred, and I quite like her. She's she's a good person. She seems happy. She's constantly hyping other people up, which is great. And having done some deep psychoanalysis of myself, which doesn't come easily. Let's be honest. I've come to the realization that it was just pure jealousy. I mean, she said herself when she rocked it to the Granite Games and beat Mal, taking that first place spot, she just wanted to turn up for a name placard, and I was like, well, that's great for you, isn't it? You can turn up, you can just do quarterfinals, just do your class at the gym, which is what she said. She just did the class programming at her gym. and then just smash it out of the park and rock up at semi-finals, and then make it to the games, and now gets third at the games, like ridiculously consistent over the weekend. She didn't have a lower placing than 17th, and that was in ski bag, which as a smaller athlete you kind of don't expect her to place that highly on there. But yeah, ridiculously consistent throughout. No event wins, which I think she said in an interview afterwards that she was a little bit concerned by. But yeah, really interesting platform for her to set on. I don't know whether she's just sort of capitalized on the fact that there was a lot of toing and froing on the women's side, leaderboard wise. But yeah, I think she's solidified her position, and I'm expecting her to constantly. She's already, I know, like people call her the female Scott Panchik, but I think she's already surpassed Scott Panchik by actually podiuming at the games, which is all credit to her.
Yeah, no, as you said, like really consistent. She had a second, a fourth, and I think 3 thirds, and like just with some other. Yeah, so it's pretty solid. Yeah, I think I had her in 12th in my back end of my list. But yeah, I did not see her finishing that high. And also not just finishing third, but finishing third by like 90, well, 90 plus points, basically. So that's pretty crazy as well. But yeah, right, go on then. Who else did we get so wrong?
The other big difference is my biggest one. I had Emma McQuaid in 9th. I mean, technically it was a medical withdrawal, so had she been healthy, who knows? But yeah, obviously disappointing to see her pull out. You had 2 differences that were greater than 10 here, on top of Annie Thoreau's daughter, and that was Amanda Barnhart. You had an 8th, and she actually landed, what were we saying, 24th. Yeah. And you also had Ellie Turner in your top 10.
Tough.
Which
tough
we all know
scenes.
how that went.
Yeah. Well, it would have been nice if Amanda Barnhart had told me that she had adopted a kid like 5 weeks before the games. That would have been quite helpful for the predictions. And then yeah, Ellie Turner. I mean, well, same as Emma McQuaid, she was injured. I can't help anything about that. Again, another part of the tears storyline. I've never seen someone literally crying while doing a workout the whole time. I think she cried 3 separate occasions.
You haven't watched me work out enough, have you?
Yeah. I think she cried 3 separate occasions. One on the handstand walk, the inverted medley. She was crying loads, trying to after failing every freestanding handstand push up again and again. And then she got, I think, a bit like not too teary, but like during the like ski bag one, you could tell like she did like all right, but you could tell she didn't like she didn't want to be doing it basically. And then obviously the Helena one that everyone saw because she just couldn't run because her back was absolutely broken. And then she literally was wobbling along, and then literally I think she started crying like doing bar muscle ups. So I just yeah, bless her. But yeah, not the best games for that whole Turner Medeiros camp really. But we can get into that later. But yeah, tough scene. Oh, well, you win some, you lose some.
Indeed. And just to call out, I did have her as part of the unexpected first cut. I had both her and Cole Sager going out. So I would like to say I called that one fairly accurately.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So we'll do this on total points differential. So total placing differential. So mine was 55 with 27 of those placings coming from Emma McQuaid. And yours was 64.
Oh, that's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
For how
so a
long
9
it was,
placing
but,
difference. Yeah, I think on the whole, like we got the top 10 like fairly even. I think you had a lot of athletes sort of jump up throughout the weekend, and as sort of Sunday came around, you had some athletes knocking out of the park, and we'll touch on Gabby Magawa a little bit later. On the men's side, my top 3 was Patty Vellner, Jeffrey Adler, and Jason Hopper.
Oh dear.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What the hell happened to Jason Hopper?
Yeah, I have no idea what happened to him at all. I mean, what can you even say? Like, no one knows what happened to him. No one. Yeah, I was just shocked. He even looked like he didn't even look like there was a difference between like looking at Medeiros in the events he did badly. He looked like he was unwell or unfit, but like Hopper was just slow. He was just slow compared to everyone else. I didn't really know what was going on, but he didn't seem like he was not up for it. Yeah, he just I don't know, just struggled. I don't even know what to say. Just I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I mean, he didn't start well, did he? On the
No.
bike, he didn't do great. So maybe that hit his confidence a bit. But like last year, he had an awful start. He was like 30th or something after day one as well, and then started racking up points, and obviously ended up finishing 7th. Whereas this time he just couldn't bounce back on the second day. I think that's basically what was the difference between last year and this year. Is like he had pretty much a similar start to day one, and then day two last year he just seemed to have a few better finishes, and this year he just did not. I'm trying to find what happened to him on the alpaca event. He came. Was that
Alpaca Redux last year or this year?
this year? This year.
This year he came 19th.
Yeah. So I think back in last year he came at least top 10. Obviously that didn't have the legless rope climbs in. So things like that. So
Alpaca
obviously,
came 6th last year.
yeah. So there you go. So that's like just one instance of, a bounce back workout that he could have had, a 6th to a 19th is a big difference. And he only missed out on the cut by what, like 2 points or something. So like, for example, if that happens, he's in the cut, he then has a lifting event, he maybe does well in the lifting event, and then he might even squeak his way all the way to Sunday. So yeah, it was just interesting how he just didn't have an event that he bounced back, and then he did awful in Helena. Like that, you would not expect him to come. I know he's a bigger guy, but how bad did he do in Helena? He came like, yeah, 30. Is that right? 37th. Yeah, that's awful. That is so bad for like his level of athlete. Like 37th. That's basically, I don't know if anyone had dropped out yet, but that's basically almost dead last in like a pretty like and a running. It's a running and bar muscle up workout. I know he's a bit tall, so the dumbbell cycling isn't going to be as fast as others, but there's no reason that he should be finishing that low in that style event. Like it just didn't really
No.
make sense.
And I think so. His first 3 events this year was 33rd, 11th in
The pig.
Pig Chipper, yeah, and then 38th in inverted medley.
Yeah,
And
he
I
couldn't
don't know
do a
whether
pullover.
it's yeah when
That was
you
yeah.
when you get out there and you have all these expectations on top 5 podium, those types of expectations, like, and you're suddenly 38th, like, how do you mentally recover from that? Like, you can't put that aside and just think, okay, next event. We're not all Pat Vellner. We don't all have like this incredible mental resilience that we can just sort of lean on. I won't repeat what I was it someone on Reddit I think said it, or some comment somewhere where someone was just like, yeah, Jason Hopper's a consistent failure. Like he's turned up and he's failed at everything he's done. He went to Clemson and just quit after the first year. He went to CrossFit Crash, quit after the first year. Like he's got no mental resilience and mental toughness. But it's like, I'm not saying I agree with those points. And I think it's a pretty horrendous thing to like go around and say things like that. But you do have to look at like within CrossFit, your ability to mentally reset between events is incredibly important, and your ability to separate each of those and approach it as neutrally as possible is incredibly important. And I don't think he was able to. It doesn't look like he was able to sort of deliver on that. I mean, at Helena, did you see the camera pan to him as he was doing the dumbbell snatches?
Well, I just watched it live. He just looked like he was just giving up. He just looked like
he just didn't look there.
Yeah.
Like he was just completely like it looked like he'd gone as hard as he could. And that was it. And that's all it was.
I think there was also a mix of like you've gone as hard as you could, but you've also realised I'm like dead last in this heat, probably going to be near back end of the event, and you just like feel awful. So yeah, not ideal. It's yeah, interesting times. A lot of rumors he might be leaving HWPO, which would be quite dramatic. I don't know if he will. Like he's like people like
He's
banging on
removed it
about
from
this.
his Instagram bio. He's
He
removed
has,
it
he
from his
has.
Instagram bio.
And like, he's gone home and he's gone back to Crash. But it's like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Would be big drama, but who knows? I mean, it
Would
doesn't
it?
make people can't say that like Hart pays off has made him worse because literally he finished 7th last year, and this year he was looking very good going into the games. Like came like what, 2nd overall in the cross like semi-finals leaderboard. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So it's not like he got worse. He just did really badly at the games. But he did the same thing
Well,
2 years ago when after all the expectation was on him. Saying that this was his
it's
worst finish. I think he came like what 19th
19th
of
in
the
his first
games
one. Yeah.
after being pipped to win. So maybe it's our fault. We should take the blame. We put way too much pressure on him and big him up too much. Maybe he is just like a really average middle of the pack CrossFitter, and we hype him up way too much. Maybe it's our fault. Maybe we are the ones to
Maybe,
blame.
or maybe if there's a lot of vertical pressing at the games next year, he'll do all right.
Maybe 7th is like his career high. Imagine that. The rest of his career. Imagine 7th place last year was actually going to be his best finish ever. What happens if he just keeps chopping up like 15s to 25ths? And this is just like a bad year for him, but that's like actually just not even that much of an outlier. It's a hard thing to think about, but maybe we've just overrated him way too much. Saying that, I'll still probably put him top 5 next year, but it's all good.
cut to this week next year, we're having exactly the same conversation. Just like, well, we put him in third.
Yeah,
And that's on us, really. Like we shouldn't have put that pressure on him.
Because it's odd. Because again, like the height thing shouldn't be an excuse because Fikowski's tall and Fikowski does well. Hopper, I feel like, has better output in some areas than Fikowski does. But yeah, I know, just very odd. Very odd. Don't really know what happened.
I think, like, hopefully when we talk about it a little bit later in terms of like the programming side of things, I think that'll lean into some differences that we might have seen. But anyway, your top 3 was Patty V in first, Medeiros in second, and Adler in third. I had Adler second. He obviously ended up on top. Ironically, we both had Krennikov in fifth, which you know, if Fikowski and Pepper could have actually no, Pepper did everything he could in that final event. If Fikowski had, you know, learned how to break up an overhead lunge more appropriately,
he did break it up. He actually did. He broke it up halfway deliberately, and he still like failed the last few steps.
Yeah, he then broke it up again twice, like afterwards. Yeah. That was the issue, right? and he was third getting to the overhead lunge. That was the problem. But anyway, so yeah, the biggest sort of gaps aside from that were on both of our sides because we were actually fairly consistent with the men as well. Like Hopper was obviously our biggest gap. Second to that, my biggest gaps were Medeiros, who obviously I had in fourth. He finished 13th, and Sam Quant, who I had in sixth, and actually finished a little bit lower than that in 15th. But he had heat stroke on the first day.
I did hear this.
Yeah, so you know, like as my pasty white brethren, me and Sam are on the same page of, you know, you get heat stroke, you just done. There's not a huge amount more you can do about it. Let's do the Justin talk.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Well, we'll start with, obviously, he's made a video for those who have watched it. He's talked about it a bit. But before that came out, obviously, just watching it, I was like, when I saw the bike scores come in, obviously, it was a bit of a, shock that he didn't do great. But I mean, it is a bike, so sometimes just random things happen, you know, crashes and whatnot. So obviously, it was, people found like he'd been in a crash, multiple crashes by the sounds of it. And then he had like big, like a handlebar Mars on his chest. And then he came out for the pig event, and he just, I know I watched the stream back, so I did touch on it a bit, but he just looked awful. He looked like he was ill. Obviously now coming out, he might have been concussed a bit, but he just looked like he just didn't want to. Like he just looked sick. That's what I felt like when I was watching it. Like just after each pig flip, like a max effort deadlift, like it was taking a knee so often. When he like moved, like did the reps, he looked fine. But the breaks between every set of whatever he was doing was like 10 times longer than everyone else. He was like a station behind everyone, which was just crazy. Like, when was the last time you saw Fraser like a whole station of movements behind the whole field? Like, never. Um,
Legless.
I literally knew you were going to say that. 2015. I'm talking about prime Fraser, not college student Fraser eating ice cream every night and
Yeah, but prime
bicep curling a pig
prime
down the field.
and we will save this conversation for an off-season podcast. But Prime Fraser would eat Prime Medeiros for breakfast.
Yeah, he would. Prime Fraser would eat. Oh, we'll get into. We'll do a whole episode on it. But Prime Fraser is still the best CrossFitter there's ever been.
Yeah,
Even though Tia's got
yeah,
more titles, Prime Fraser's still
yeah.
the best. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, Medeiros,
Yeah,
like, I don't know, he just looked ill, and then I don't know how you thought like watching it from your end.
he just didn't look okay. But basically, the sort of view that I had throughout the whole weekend is that anything that required him to like breathe too heavily, like was just was just too much. So I kind of assumed that he damaged a rib or had like some sort of bruising on his lung from this. Like the concussion, now that we look back on it, also makes sense a little bit. And you kind of have to ask the questions of like, I don't want to get into a whole concussion protocol thing, but like obviously, like coming from a rugby background, it's something I'm quite familiar with. Like you should be checking people for concussion if they land on their face or coming off a bike. Probably an idea.
Mm.
Um, Shout out to Lazar for opening up the podium for the other guys. It's much appreciated. Great work.
Well, it's funny. So like Lazar was blaming Medeiros, but there's a lot of talk that's like I think it's like Mertens was saying. It's interesting how all these bike crashes involve Lazar. Basically, there's other people who got in accidents, and only Lazar was the one constant in all of them. It's like Lazar might need to take a look at himself. But yeah, I mean, I think I think part of the reason about that whole concussion thing and doing checks, the games have shown, especially at semis, which is very odd. So basically, at semis, they show they're very strict about if you look injured and you're not
Yeah,
performing the work, you're getting booted. So like,
yeah.
shout out Alexander Caron doing attempting his muscle ups, but got kicked out. So this at the games, it's very interesting. So you had obviously Justin Marv being concussed or carrying some injury, but he's not going to say it in case he gets kicked out. Then obviously later on the weekend with Roman and his broken foot. I'm sorry, but at semis, you're getting kicked out. So they just changed the rules at the games, but that's just CrossFit for you. They just don't have a set of rules. They just make it up as they go along. But that's a different story for a different day as well. But yeah, I don't know. And then he had like Medeiros had like a good run, like on obviously came second on the inverted medley, came seventh on alpaca, came third on ski bag. You're like, oh, he's actually making a charge. Like, you never know. He could do, like, I think the podium automatically was almost out of reach, just the way Roman had started and the way he had started the competition. It's like, oh, that's why I think the whole Thursday night post workout tears, because he like really accepted, I think he's just not going to win this year already. But maybe like a podium was still on the cards. So on that run of like second, seventh, third, you're like, oh, he actually might do it. And then he took a 30th again in Helena, which similar to Hopper, there's no reason he shouldn't be taking like a top 10. Like that's like something you
And
look at
this is
Medeiros, like that's just running and bar muscle ups, and he's very good at that stuff. So I don't know, it's really random. Yeah, and then
I
after
think
that, he just took very middle of the pack finishes. That I
yeah.
mean, it was about obviously he never wins events, but usually he's coming top fives in a lot of things. Whereas this was like just a little step back of that and just taking lots of mid teens to tens, which is just not quite like him, but still very consistent. So maybe there just was something wrong with him throughout the week. But yeah,
And then he had a really good Sunday.
yeah, he
Sixth,
did.
ninth, third.
Yeah, so yeah, just a weird batch of. I mean, and those who have watched the video they put out was basically saying he was a bit injured leading into the
Everyone's
games.
injured, man.
Exactly.
Everyone's
So like,
injured. Like
um,
I don't think you can lean on that as an excuse. Like everyone's
no,
carrying a knock, everyone's carrying
yeah,
something. nobody's able to train. If his last 2 years have just been, oh well, I was able to train pain free with no limitations, with no issues, and this is his first year that he's had to, do something. He's faced a little bit of adversity, and this is what the outcome is. Then it's similar to I think what I said post semifinals, where if he's such an execution athlete and something goes wrong and he doesn't execute perfectly and it goes poorly and he just doesn't have the ability to sort of recover from that and has to blame other people, then that doesn't bode well for his ability to perform. Like you have to be able to, exactly as what we said with Hopper, like you have to be able to take the poor events and turn them into something positive.
Yeah. No, it's weird. I think maybe because he touched on the video how he was arguably in the best shape he's ever been in around quarters time, because he obviously won quarters and won 2 of the workouts, which, as he said, like that just never happens, especially on a global field. Like he doesn't win events, he just does very consistent. To win 2 of the 5 quarterfinals tests and win worldwide is like, right, he's like feeling the best I've ever been. So maybe that affected him mentally when he did get maybe a bit injured leading into the games. He's like, oh no, like I was feeling so good this year. But then obviously semis went badly as well. Like obviously came 6th or 5th, whatever. But so I know, just a lot of odd things going on. Who knows what happened? But yeah, just very, very surprising. I think a lot of people thought he would just bounce back from like the disappointment at semis, but I don't know. Maybe he, I don't know. Maybe his injury is quite bad, but as you said, people always carrying like niggles. I mean, Fraser supposedly won the games with no knee on the most squat heavy games there ever was. So, I mean, take that for what you want. So yeah. But yeah, very, very surprising.
So,
right, who else?
Yeah, in terms of, let me get back to it.
Well, obviously we should say we slept on Roman. Like we both gave him 5th, and realistically, I'm never going to make that mistake again. After watching this games, I'm like, he's actually built for the games. It doesn't matter what he does in any competition, because in the games, especially like this year's programming, it's just a lot of moving, heavy weights over distances, and just like a bit of machine. Like that's all he's built for, and he's actually freakishly
his
good
muscle,
at gymnastics.
his muscle ups have gotten so much better.
But I think we also
I didn't think it was. I didn't think
that a bit as well.
We were going to see, but
yeah,
clearly
but they did say at Rogue,
pull it out, and obviously,
you go. Oh, he's gone. Hello, are you there?
Oh, I think we're
Your
back.
thing was pause,
yeah. I was just saying the muscle up workout, poor that he wasn't able to solidify it, because it should have been a turning point for him where he proved all the doubters wrong. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to. That was the workout where he got injured, which is quite a sad state of affairs for him.
Yeah, it was. But I was gonna say, like, I know people saying muscle ups are bad, but also what we basing that off, like just off like Rogue, because Rogue, it came out that he just literally just was completely fried before even going into the workout. Like he felt under fueled and all this stuff they were saying. So that probably played rather than just his muscle ups being bad, because it had a lot of running in it, and obviously the goblet squats. So maybe they just overplayed how bad his muscle ups were. But yeah, never gonna doubt him again. Honestly, yeah, he was so impressive. It was, and just the gymnastic skills. Like, it was just an animal in his hands on the inverted medley, and in person, he's just a very big man. Like he's just, you wouldn't like look at him and be like, yeah, you're pretty, like you're strong, but you wouldn't look at him like you're like an athletic guy. But yeah, beast. So don't really much. Yeah, and a broken foot. Obviously, you can't say he would have won, but it would have. The last 2 events would have been the most exciting finish on the men's side, pretty much. So yeah, it was a shame he got robbed of that, but it happens.
Yeah, I did sort of feel like the it just felt quite let down after the first after that event, because I was really excited for a big race. Like obviously Emma Lawson then threw it away in the in that penultimate workout. So yeah, it was obviously quite frustrating. But in terms of where we landed on our total points differential, I had 62 total. You had 57 total for the men.
Ooh.
So you beat me on the men. But what this does in fact mean is that when we combine the men and the women, I'm able to reign victorious with 117 and points difference, and you were 121st.
Pretty close though.
Great
Like...
success. Great success.
Gosh, that's the first win in a while for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been about 5 years since I've won anything. So,
Oh dear. But yeah, we
yeah, considering all my other predictions this year have gone to absolute dog.
Yeah.
Like all the fantasy games that I was playing this year, I was absolutely horrendous at.
Honestly, it makes your fourth place last year more and more impressive. The more you keep like finishing in the thousands. I like, how did you actually do that? You've probably played with only like 10 people playing. That's my theory.
Yeah, I had eight burner accounts plus my own.
That is mental.
Dear.
But yeah, no, I mean, some obviously names that you wouldn't like, not too surprising to see finish up there, and then some just did surprisingly well, like Jay Crouch. Like, great finish by him.
Yeah, that was huge. I really wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, really good, and not too no, and obviously Chandler Smith surprised everyone. I feel like, I mean, he's obviously got the talent. Like he's like obviously very good. He did well at Rogue. I can't remember if he finished second or third. He was almost close to winning it, so maybe finished second. But yeah, and actually like backing up the games is quite cool. Be interesting to see if he actually does go team now with Noah, or if he actually hats off Noah and be like, actually no, I probably should do another run at individual, which I think he should. But we shall see what happens with that. Right, you want to move on to want to touch on any other predictions we made, like other ones? It's not like that important.
Rookie, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk about rookie of the year a little bit later.
All right. I could say like event wins. I don't know who you picked, but I picked Roman for the men and Laura for the ladies, and I was spot on. I mean, that's not too surprising.
I picked Valner.
Did you?
Yeah, did.
Dear.
He only delivered one, didn't he?
Yeah, on the intervals one. He did absolutely destroy everyone though.
That was insane. Yeah, that was mad.
Oh, Vilna. I mean, we could talk about that if you want. That was just heartbreaking. I will get into it, but with the events that were programmed, Medeiros finished outside the top 10, Roman breaking his foot, Ricky Garrard not even there, and and he still comes second. Like, what else can you do to help this man win? There was no swim. Like, I don't know what else you can actually add. Like, it's just, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think this was his final good. I thought his final good chance was 2 years ago, the first year Medeiros won. But now after this year and just everything that happened, is like, what more can you do to help him, like set him up for success? Like, what else can you actually do?
So I will read out the maths that I did on the 8th of August, when I was fully in my Velna depression, fully convinced that he was never going to win the game. So Alpaca Redux, because that's so he obviously had the 27th on the bike. I think he's now said, right, I basically should have gone with the pack that was ahead of me and stuck with them and pushed hard to stay with them. And he said like that was a pack that had Fikowski and Chandler in it. So, you can potentially make like Chandler finished 17th at the end, and that's like a couple of extra points if he'd been able to stick with that pack. Then gets 6th place on Pig Chipper, 6th place on Inverted Medley. Does pretty well on both of those. I think Inverted Medley, he messed up a little bit coming off the pullovers. All right.
Coming up to the pullovers on the stairs up, he failed it 3 times or 2 times. I mean, you could still give him. I know the 6 aren't bad finishes, but for example, the Pig Chipper, I would expect. I think I picked him to win that event on the Heat 1 app. I thought he would have handled it. Like he said on his post games Instagram post, he said he was actually cramping already, so he had to slow down his pig flips at the back end, which was really frustrating for him because he just wanted to try rip through it like Laura did. So I can actually understand that because he did move it a bit slow, so that does make sense. Then yeah, inverted medley again, he probably lost 2 or 3 spots. So obviously it's not loads amount of points, but they do add up. Like it's just over the course of weekends, a few spots here and there adds up to a lot more points. And then yeah, like the alpaca, well, we're not happy there. Just that one, the last rope, the last 2 hand over hand descents on the last climb was basically just that's just when I knew. I was like, oh, you're done. That's once again another title chance slips away.
Yeah. So that would have been an extra 60 points on Alpaca Redux. Ski Bag 6th, solid finish. Helena 6th, solid finish. 5K, I've said probably should have had a top 5, but went out too hot with the pack and then died.
Maybe top.
Let's be generous. Let's be the Pat Velner fan club we all want to be. Intervals absolutely destroyed. Olympic total, I don't think he didn't miss anything, so I'm not anticipating him like jumping up massively. Muscle up logs, he failed the last ring muscle up.
Yeah.
So if he'd waited a couple of potentially could have been an extra couple of points. Parallel bar pull second, he did well. Echo thruster, I think like if something's on the line, you fight a little bit more for it, right? Whereas I think he knew he couldn't catch Adler. He knew what he needed to do to beat Krenikov. So he probably could have pushed a little bit more. So he'd have, by the maths that I did, he'd have beaten Adler by 4 points. But obviously that's without Adler having to... That's without Adler pushing in the last 2 events, right? Adler definitely could have gone hard in parallel bar pull and echo thruster final.
And Adler did beat Velner by almost 40 seconds in the final and not even pushing it. So I think Adler would have smacked him if he had to.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's fine.
And that completely disregards whatever Roman would have done.
Exactly. Which, in theory, Velner did win the games.
Exactly. I genuinely think there's a possibility that Krenikov could have got 200 points and landed on 1001 points, which would have been insane.
Oh dear, but yeah, it's just tough. Like swim as well. Like what? And the main people in contention. Okay, we put Adler up there, but I don't think anyone actually deep down thought Adler was going to be the guy to win. Everyone thought it was like Roman, probably. Obviously, we didn't, but I bet you other people did. And it's like he broke his foot. Medeiros is not even in the conversation. Ricky's not even in the country. It's just like, what else can we do? The programming set up so well for him as well. Like a lot of pulling.
Yeah.
Like just what? Like I don't know. It's sad because it's like it wasn't just sad because of this loss specifically, but it's just more sad. I think future prospects, we're just never going to see Velner on top of the podium. But again, like Hopper, I will gladly put him in contention next year once again.
Did you hear Ricky say what he got on inverted medley?
No.
He so apparently he did it at home because he did like 6 of the events. And he says he got 330, which would have put him in first.
Fair enough. But that guy says a lot of things. But
yeah,
fair enough.
But that'll be something interesting. He reckons he thinks he'd have won the games this year, which is very easy to say.
Yeah,
as we just did it about Pat Velner.
Yeah, exactly. No, he'll be up there. Like especially these events. To be fair, he would have been like easily top 5, probably top 3. Yeah, but who knows? As you said, well, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe the future really is just going to be Jeff, Roman, and Ricky, which will be, not a bad thing. 3 very different characters. And if it is quite close every year, at least it's quite exciting. But yeah, we shall see. Right, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to do just general programming overview of like what the events were like? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, we'll start there and then we'll dive into sort of some individual athlete performances from the European and British side, I think.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, obviously, event 1 we had Ride, which was the 40-minute AMRAP, but not really an AMRAP because it was like 40 minutes, and then wherever you got cut off, then you still had to ride to the end of the lap, so it's like 40 plus a bit. pretty standard CrossFitty, just monostructural test. It was done in like where the cyclocross was back in like 2017. It was actually quite hilly. Like it doesn't show it on like the YouTube stream, like on TV. You can't really tell the slope, but like it's quite there's quite a bit of hill and like elevation to it. Not like not even like a direct uphill downhill, but almost like on the side of the hill, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it was quite interesting. I mean, it's not a bad test. Like over a whole week of workouts, it probably fits in fine. But I don't know. But I just think it's a bit boring. But I don't know what you think about it.
I think that it relies too much on cycling skill as opposed to any capacity. So I think it's, had you given people, and I appreciate like it is completely different, but had you given people like a 40-minute C2, completely different, right? Like it's and so that skill element I think is probably the same for a swim in terms of like how different it is for individual athletes. So I think that's my sort of major bone to pick with it. And I think we should definitely, like, I know Glassman's saying fitness in 100 words, regularly learn and play new sports, but I I think given the broad amount of tests you're having, to be able to expect people to be able to do that when they don't necessarily have a background in it, I think you're always going to be biased towards people who do have a background in it, and that goes across the board. But I don't know how well it sits with me. I don't think the test itself was a good enough test because it was just done. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was the time that you finished your last lap, complete lap. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, there was like a cutoff. There was like a line that if you got through the lap, basically, if you got through the lap in the 40 minutes, you got to then finish another lap. But if you were cut like before the time, then now you were done. So it's just first person to the cutoff. So that makes sense. Like at the 40-minute mark, if you were into the next lap, you could finish that lap and race, and that'd be like your placement. And if you were before the 40-minute time coming into the end of the lap, it'll just be where you crossed over the line. I think that's pretty much what it was. But yeah, I agree with you. Like the bike element in terms of like, and like just mechanical failure on a bike and the crashing. I know it's racing, but it does affect, like, it's not, can't say it's not fitness, but it can like impact the leaderboard. Like if someone just gets an unfortunate bike chain break or something, does that prove they're less fit than someone else? Not really. They just got unlucky with the bike. So I don't know. It's exciting in one sense, but imagine if it was like flips, because it starts early at the weekend as well. That not many people think about it, but if like it was like on day 4, the first event or something, and then you had like, let's say, Roman and Adler up at the top, and then for some reason, not even like a bad reason, Roman's chain just popped off, not even his fault, and he came like 30th or 20th. He'd be like, well, that's literally ruined the whole competition, not due to his fitness, but due to like a mechanical failure. And it's just like, it would just ruin the competition. So I don't know. It's not like a bad
somebody ruining the competition for somebody else by cycling into them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough line because obviously you still want to do some athletic things. And I don't know, it just looks a bit silly, but it's just a bit boring to watch. I feel like the 5K was fun to watch, but for some reason the bike just seemed boring to watch. I can't really put my finger on why there's a difference in that, because it's almost the same thing. But yeah,
I think it's because you don't know what the end point is, right? Whereas with the 5K, you know it's 3 laps. Well, the 4.5K.
Maybe,
you know it's 3
maybe,
laps. You know
make you relate to the run a bit more. Like, who of us trains a 40-minute bike ride that often, whereas everyone can know what a 5K is or what it feels like, and it's probably done it in the CrossFit space. So maybe that also just relate to a bit more. But yeah, as a monostructural test, it's not like that bad. But yeah, it's just meh, I feel like, and it's just such a meh way to start. I always feel like the games, a lot of the time, is like the actual game starts on the second event. The first event, even if it's like a swim or something, it's just so bleh. Like, I think the most exciting first event they've actually done in a while was the 2019, the first cut, the 4 rounds of the 400-meter run, 3 legless, and the 7 snatches. which is like a proper workout
Yeah.
just to start the event. Obviously, there was things like running on the line as well with the cuts like straight away. But I think that's like actually a good CrossFit event just to kick off the whole competition. But yeah, anyway, pig chipper, moving on, event 2. Hopefully we don't take this long on each one, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Good test. Pig gets in there, so Rogue can potentially sell some more of them. Good gymnastics test as well. Like you had different separators for different people. Like I think Laura coming back and like just getting to the pig and just getting to work was like one of the most like, okay, Laura is here to burn stuff down. Right, that was a really a defining moment for the weekend, I think. Similar with Kranikov coming through and pushing through as well. I think it was a I liked it as a test. You know, it's a little bit of weightlifting, a little bit of gymnastics, a little bit of yeah. It's a good, strong CrossFit test. Don't really see an issue with it.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Good event. The pig, it'd be interesting if they can use the pig in a different way. They literally just flip it down the field and then flip it back. Like in terms of like the last time they used it was the same thing. They just before the capital, it was just do whatever it was. I can't remember how many flips it was. 15, 20 flips or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And then the year before that, it was 10 flips down, do some stuff, come back, 10 flips, end. Whereas maybe they could do it, implement it into rounds. Like I feel like but it doesn't really work as well on that turf field. The workouts don't really lend itself to that.
No.
But who knows? Wherever they move, it might do in the future. But yeah, a good CrossFit test. Basically just a up and down chipper, a lot of gymnastics to start, but as we found out, that was just scratching the surface of all the pulling that was to come in the competition. Just a nice primer for the lats and the grip. But yeah, I really like it. It's just like a good. I do like those workouts where something you could see at semis, or it's just a jazzed up classic CrossFit workout. Like a semis version would just be clean and jerks, heavy clean and jerks instead of pig flips, basically. And then the same gymnastics and the wall balls. But yeah, pretty good workout. Right. Event 3, inverted medley. I mean, what do you think of this one?
I think everyone got a little bit of a view of the pullovers beforehand, so they sort of knew what was coming, which is good. And it wasn't too egregious from a gymnastics standpoint. I think you and I were looking at it and we're just sort of, well, what on earth is Boz going to do? And I think this is a theme that's really come through, is that I think a lot of Boz's stuff got watered down. Castro wanted to make things a lot more fitnessy, a lot more racing, a lot more Castro. And that's sort of what we saw throughout the weekend is, okay, there's little sprinkles of what Boz wanted to do, but then Dave's come in and just gone, no, this is stupid. Or, no, I don't like this. I want to do this differently. And apart from Ride, what we've seen in Pig Trip and Inverted Medley, it's very clear who's winning. It's very clear where the separators are and where the issues were for particular athletes. And so we're able to see them progress down the floor as well, which I think is really, really good. In terms of how this fits in with the rest of the weekend, I think we're definitely missing another handstand push-up variant. Because if we're talking about 4 freestanding handstand push-ups plus 4 freestanding handstand push-ups, I don't feel like we're seeing enough handstand push-up volume overall.
Yeah,
particularly given the fact that we've had it at pretty much every stage of the season up to this point, right?
Yeah,
I think we're missing a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting because why is so much pulling acceptable in terms of it's not a bad thing to see loads of chest to bar, loads of muscle ups, bar and ring, toes to bar, normal pull ups, like so much of that throughout the competition, but it would be like unacceptable to see handstand push ups in different variations come up even twice. Like what actually is the problem with that? Because like the free standing handstand push up is very different to a strict deficit handstand push up. Yes, you're going the same plane of motion, but they're very different skills. And it's the same with a bar and a ring muscle up. They're pretty similar, but again, if you do it enough, there's a slight difference in them. But that for some reason that's more acceptable in a CrossFit competition than it is for pressing. So yeah, I mean, there's an overall theme of like just loads of pulling in this games, and not as anywhere near as much pressing, which isn't a bad thing because I feel like the games always biases a movement each year, and it's not even like they deliberately do it. They might deliberately do it, but sometimes it's just the way the workouts shake out. Like say, like 2017 was such a squat heavy games. If you go back and look at that one, you'll see how much squatting there was, and legs. And like this year was just loads of pulling, which again isn't a bad thing, but it's just interesting. But yeah, I think like the pressing, like I was surprised. I thought we might see bench or something, like, you know, just more because, you know, just test some other type of pressing. Like even we'll get to it, but even the parallel bars, I was very disappointed not to see any dips. Like I get the traverse is still hard, but again, because there was not much pressing, it's like surely do some dips in there or something. But yeah, don't know, just the way it went this year.
It's crazy
yeah,
that.
Yeah,
I'd probably say the last year that we had like a crazy amount of pulling was 2018, right?
I have to go back and think of all the workouts. We had the pegboard in the final. What we have, we had the
30 muscle ups, marathon row, battleground, hard rope
we
climbs.
had the snatch,
Fibonacci,
chest to bar, snatch bar, muscle up.
Bike up at 1, bike up at 2.
Yeah, fairly pulling. But I think this was like more exaggerated in terms of like just so many different, almost isolated movements of like the legless rope climbs, the pullovers, the muscle ups, well, ring and bar muscle ups, bar and Helena, and the ring in the muscle up log, the sled pull thing on the final event, second final event. What else? Well, obviously all the chest to bar, the toes to bar. Like that was a lot. But yeah, like inverted media thought was all right. It's a bit boring that we just keep doing handstand walk in terms of just like a little 2 to 3 minute race over obstacles. Like, why can't we just see it in the middle of like, I still think the best one they did was 2019, the second event, second cut, the 800-meter row. I think it's like some weird number, like 66 light kettlebell push press. And then it was into 3 unbroken sections of like 44-foot handstand walks. And they had to be unbroken. And that was like good drama. Not a huge volume, but 132 foot of handstand walk, but under the pressure, racing, and there was obviously the cut was still looming over people, and having to do those bits unbroken on really fried shoulders was really exciting. And yeah, Fikowski again falling up like 1 foot short. That guy, honestly, lunges and handstand walk, he loves falling just like 1 foot short. But yeah, like I just feel like we just keep doing handstand walk in the Coliseum, just over a ramp, and it's just getting a bit boring. But I don't know. What do I know?
Change of venues coming, man. Change of venues coming. That means
exactly. Now we can do it again, just over a ramp in even a smaller venue. So it'd be lovely. All right. The Alpaca event 4. I mean, I love this workout personally. I think it's a really good workout. The rope climbs, obviously a completely different workout to having no rope climbs. The weather was hotter, so that made the sleds, like the friction on the turf was way more, hence why the sled looked like they couldn't even move it compared to last year. But yeah, I think it's a great workout. I don't really know what else to say. Yeah, a very good classic CrossFit games. That's like when I think of the games, I think of those type of workouts, like heavy, tough, high skill, but not looking. It doesn't even look stupid. It looks quite cool. Looks fun to do.
Yeah,
just all in all, it like ticks all the boxes. I feel like for a CrossFit Games, like good workout. What do you think?
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, cool, pretty easy. Yeah,
ski bag.
Actually,
I'll start with it.
You go.
No, I'll start with this. I hated this because it meant Alexis was dropping out of the leaders jersey and dropping out of the top 3 contention, and that made me sad.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. But again, I actually love this workout. At first, I thought, "What is this?" And then other than the weights of the bag were released, I was like, "Okay, that makes more sense." I felt the ski was a bit irrelevant in terms of like 50 cal ski when it's literally just a squat. Who can just squat with the sandbag well? Like literally, they could have just done 50 for time, and you would have probably got similar results across the field.
But that's like that is Ball's programming though, isn't it? It's just putting a machine in just for no real reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe.
Like that's all it really does. Is it he puts a machine in. We saw it in semis.
Mm.
The machine doesn't really do anything. It doesn't add to the workout. It doesn't take anything
Yeah.
away from the workout. It's just there.
It would have
And
added to the workout if the bag was lighter and there's a few more cows on the ski. So if it was like still 30-20 on the squats, but it was only like a 70 kg for the guys and like a 50 or 45 for the ladies, but the ski was, let's say, maybe double. But then you see people sending the ski properly and it would matter, and then you just flying through the squats. It'd be a completely different stimulus, not as like a strength endurance test, more like an actual just metabolic test. But that's where the ski would have mattered. But yeah, in this sense, it was literally just who's strong. Like, saw Laura completely destroy the bag compared to everyone else. It would have not mattered what she skied. She could have come off last off the ski, and she still would have won that event because she just manhandled the bag so easily. But I still liked it.
She finished a minute and 14 seconds ahead
That's
of
what I
Alex
mean.
Kazan.
Yeah. So
She finished at 4:36.
yeah,
Alex Kazan finished at 5:50. That kind of differential in such a short workout is insane. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, it was a good workout. It was enjoyable. I think watching people, I think it was a little bit too heavy for the women, considering that only 5 finished it. Or maybe you should pull the ski cows back a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, it was a tough workout for some people because they clearly just weren't used to sandbag squats at all.
Well, I would think though it'd be savage. Like, just think about doing the alpaca in the morning and then come to do that like 2 hours later. That's a tough back-to-back event. Like, you've just been out in the heat for 15 plus minutes because like just doing heavy, kettlebell clean and jerks and legless rope climbs and pushing the sled, and that's like full leg on the push of the sled. It was heavy, and then you have to come back in. You've got to pull a bit, getting the bag to your shoulder, and then squat with that weight, and it's not lightweight. So savage back-to-back tests.
And I think the thing is, like, we haven't seen a barbell yet, but we've seen heavy odd object in the pig. We've seen heavy kettlebells and a heavy-ish sled. Well, a very heavy sled on alpaca. Yeah. And then a heavy bag on ski bag.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I think we've definitely seen the sort of difference in the style of programming. Like, you didn't see barbell guys doing well in these. Like, if we look at Jake Douglas, who is known as like one of the stronger guys in the field with a barbell, he just wasn't able to, like, ski bag was the one where he performed best, but he wasn't able to mix it up with alpaca redux and pig chipper, where you probably would have expected him to, if they were barbells instead, he probably would have done a little bit better.
Maybe. I mean, they were still quite gymnastic stents, those first two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, again, I like that people saying there wasn't enough barbell. I'm like, but why do you want to see a barbell all the time? It's boring. And like, these are cool and they're heavy. They're still very like strength, like strong strength elements in there. It's just in a different way. And again, that's like, to me, what like a CrossFit Games should be like actually using your strength to move objects around rather than just throw a barbell around all the time.
Agreed.
I quite liked it. Cool. Event 6 to cap off day 2 was Helena. I don't know what you thought. I thought when it was first announced, the dumbbell weight was way too light. I think on reflection it was fine, but still, I just thought, like, for the elite guys and the girls, like, that dumbbell's going to get manhandled and it's going to be cut. And they're talking about dodgy, reps for kettlebell swings. Like, there could be very easy dodgy reps trying to move a dumbbell this light, which I feel like there was a few people who probably got away with some obvious no reps, but that just happens. But I mean, I like the 400-meter run, like the bar muscle ups. If you want to put a barbell in, you could put a light barbell in here. Light hang snatches with a barbell would have been, I think, quite cool. But
I think I would have preferred it, because otherwise we don't get dumbbells throughout the rest of the weekend, do we? No. I'd have preferred it if because I think going 30, 22 and a half for the male female, so like going up to the traditional next one from a CrossFit standpoint you'd have lost the stimulus a little bit. Whereas I think if you could have gone something like 25, 26, and then like 17.5 or 18 or something similar to that. I'd have liked to have seen that, where it's something a little bit different, because we know these guys have the capacity to do this, to go unbroken on it, and to push the pace on it. But doing a dumbbell that they're not necessarily used to, I think would have added an interesting element here.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
not
Like a
puzzled, Dave.
60-pound dumbbell that like probably no one ever uses for the guys,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then like a whatever, a 40-pound dumbbell for the ladies that they never
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think that as well. But yeah, I think I'd say like a barbell would have been interesting, like hang snatches. You could have kept the weight light. You could have literally just made it Randy weight. You could have just made it 75 pounds for the guys, which is like 30 kg basically, or 34 kg or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then like whatever that be, 20-ish, 25 kg for ladies, which would have been, and because it's high rep still, but I've been like, we've played into the idea of it's still very gassy, you're still hinging, and it'd be a bit more grippy because both hands are on the barbell. So I don't know if that would have been a way to get a barbell in, but yeah, it was still I mean, it was a good race. Obviously, like obviously look, in person was very cool with them running out, and then when they run in, they got big applause, and it was quite a good one for like a show. So that fits in quite well for the show side of things, not just a pure, from the fitness side of things. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Cool. Right. Event 7, we had the 5K or the 4.56K, the 5,000 yard run. I mean, I think it's fine for yeah, I thought it was quite good. People were saying there was so much running in this competition. There's like literally one run and then like some 400-meter laps. There's like we've seen so much running in other events before. Like, if you think about the 2020 games, we had the sprint up the hill with the bag, and we had the wherever it was, a 10K in the hills, and that's just on day one. Then we had Happy Star, which was the 4 or 5 rounds with the, I think it was 4 rounds with the running up the hill and back with the burpees and the thrusters. And we had Atalanta, which had 2 miles of running in it in a weight vest.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anyone complain about too much running in that one, but yeah. I mean, it's pretty standard. I thought it was quite cool they did a 5K, but it would be nice if it was actual 5K. When they started coming in at 16:30, I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mess up. But hey ho, like yeah, we can talk about it and how it's like symptomatic of a wider issue at CrossFit with lack of attention to detail and incapability in actually putting on events that run well. But it's not worth us diving into that today. It was a good race. Really fun to see Adler pushing Krennikov. I really enjoyed that, and I've enjoyed Krennikov apparently complaining that Adler was touching him. So yeah, very entertaining.
Yeah.
Then moving on to intervals, I really enjoyed that as well. I thought that was a great event. You could see the difference in like Vellner, who was just able to get over like the burpee box get overs with a big separator, and the way that he approached that compared to other athletes approaching it was just a world of difference. It was crazy. Yeah, that's what I loved about it. And it was just go as hard as you can, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, when they announced it, I was like, that is the most boring event I've ever seen. And the row again, like, what even the point? 15 cows. But yeah, like, in person, it was a good race. And yeah, Vellner showed he's way more efficient on the high burpee box jump overs. That's pretty much what won in the event. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that in person. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you need those type of events in there to like have a well-rounded test. But I think, I don't know, it just looked a bit boring. But still was like a good race, and obviously they're blowing like halfway through when they get in the rest period. A lot of them are like doubled over, just leaning on their little name board area. So obviously you could tell it got to them. It was basically almost like a pure leg test. Obviously had the row in there, but with like the box jumps, the burpee box jumps. It would have been cool if they just chucked in a C2 bike and just make it a pure leg. You can still keep it 15 cows, but just make it pure leggy, which would have been quite savage. We've seen people maybe failing a box jump.
Yeah. I think it's that
Finally.
risk of seeing people fail a box jump, right?
Yeah, but
That they
that's,
probably want to avoid.
I don't know. That's, well,
Game's the game.
I don't think they care that much about people failing a box jump if they're letting them go ride a bike and crash into each other. I think that's the least of their
Yeah,
worries.
yeah, very true, very
Um,
true.
cool. And then we finished off that day with Olympic total. I mean, again, like it's the games, you need, well, you don't need, but there's always going to be some type of max-ish effort strength test. Obviously, last year we had the sandbag, so this year they went back to a very classic way with the barbell, doing snatch and clean and jerk. I mean, I think it was a good test. I think the only real issue with it that most people had is just give them another lift, just make it a true Olympic total, just give them 3 attempts instead
Mm,
of
mm.
when it's 2 attempts, you have to go conservative
Yep.
to make sure you get a number. And then the second one, it's either just a bit higher than that to still get a slightly higher number, or you just, if you're feeling really good, you go for a PB. Whereas in a 3 lift, you go with something you're definitely going to hit. Then the middle one, you go with something
Yep.
that's tough, but you probably should hit. And then, yeah, the third, you go for the PB, which would have been quite exciting. But I don't really think there's too much to it. I think it was fine as a test. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the only concern that I have is just that we're missing out on that. Obviously, it's the only time a barbell's shown up apart from the final. So yeah, it's like it is. It was just frustrating to see people have to play with gamesmanship more than they probably needed to, as opposed to just like a true representation of what they can do. Because you had people, so it was on both sides. 2 of the top 4 in this event wound up getting cut because they could swing for the fences. And yes, they were the athletes that definitely had the capacity to lift heavy, but I think like they probably could have been a little bit more. The guys at the top end could have lifted a little bit more if they'd been given the opportunity to, and that would have been good.
Yeah,
but
I agree. It was weird that Saturday was, they teased leading up. It was going to be like, the 5K, the gymnastics test, and then the Olympic lifting. But then the gymnastics test ended up being that inverted medley. But when the inverted medley got released and it said it was on the Friday, that obviously got people thinking, well, if that's not the gymnastics test, what's the gymnastics test going to involve? But then that just never even happens. Like,
materialized.
so, yeah. So either the inverted medley was the gymnastics test. And I think there's like talk behind the scenes that it was meant to be on Saturday and they moved it because they wanted to put the intervals
ESPN.
in for the TV window for ESPN.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the reason they did it. But yeah, I don't know. That was a bit underwhelming. That whole Venn diagram thing, I thought could have been way better. Like you did the 3 single modality tests, and maybe then do like a CrossFit test at the end of the day. Because then, like in
Are you
person,
saying that? Are you saying that CrossFit didn't communicate something effectively, and as a result, we were all left significantly underwhelmed? Oh,
you don't even need to say that. That's just synonymous with CrossFit. But yeah, and also
still looking for a director of marketing, guys. CrossFit still looking for a director of marketing.
I don't know how it felt watching it back home, but I also feel
years.
like I feel like ending on the Olympic total was quite like a dead end to the day. Like it was like obviously a bit hype in the event, but then I was like, I feel like we're just missing like just a nice cap to the day, like just a nice, maybe like a shorter event, like a 5-minute ish classic CrossFit burner, but we just didn't really get anything like that. So I don't know, I just feel like yeah, Fran.
You wanted Fran, didn't you?
Yeah, we could have done something like that. I think
more
something
pulling.
classic.
Is that what you wanted? You wanted more
Exactly.
pulling.
Yeah, to be fair, we hadn't done enough till then. I was like, gosh, if only had some more pull-ups to really test their capacity.
To be fair, like sticking like a sort of games Diane in there would have been quite good.
Yeah,
right?
well, maybe pressing, because we didn't do loads of squatting. Obviously, did thrusters at the ends, but I think maybe some front squats with some pressing.
Yeah,
some deficit handstand push-ups, front squats. I don't know, something like that.
What was that regional event? From
Which year?
2016, maybe 2015, where it was the deficit handstand push-up, front squat, and bar facing burpee. I think the front squats were at like 90 something kilos.
I do not remember.
Steve Fawcett won it.
Oh, yes, definitely before my time. I do not remember that event.
But that, like something like that would have been pretty good. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I feel like some heavy. I mean, they had the squatting already with the bag, so maybe not squatting, but just
yeah,
something, some other movement. And then thing is, what we never see also. I mean, it'd probably be a bit boring in terms of show in a coliseum because you just be on a machine. But like you don't
yeah,
see much monostructural with gymnastics.
no,
So you could have done like,
no,
I don't know. Again, what machine? Unless Rogue made a new machine. Like we've got this crazy new machine. Maybe they put on the Versa Climber. We're doing Versa Climber and deficit straight hands and push-ups. Let's go. But yeah, I just feel like it would be. I feel just Saturday just needed like a cool sprint event or something to finish off. Like I know
yeah,
they usually do it quite often. Like 2016, they had, I think it was called 100, even though it was like just
yeah, yeah.
100% or something. It's like the box jump, sandbag, D-ball cleans.
Mm,
2017, they had quite a controversial event. They had that the assault banger. Um, 2018, they had bicouplet 1 and 2, where fans could pick
yeah,
which order they do it in. 2019, we finished on the heavy clean, but that was like done in a way more dramatic way, and like there was a lot
mm,
more running on the line. That was quite cool. Obviously, 2020 was the COVID games. 2021, we had the sandbag event, which was it? No, 2021 was not the sandbag event. It was, what was Saturday night? 2021, probably heavy lifting. Just the snatch. And then obviously
yeah, yeah.
lastly we had the sandbag. But yeah, sometimes I feel like well, just the way it worked this year, just with a 5K, and then the intervals, and then just the lift, could have done with something more on the end. But it is what it is. And then the final day.
I found the workout. Sorry,
Oh
just
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
it was event 4 from regionals in 2014. So before Hosking was even a glimmer in his parents' eye. It was 21:15, 9:63 strict handstand push-ups, front squats, and burpees. I
Yeah,
think the handstand push-ups were to a deficit. Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. But I
yeah,
think something like a play on
yeah,
that would have
yeah.
been quite interesting.
That's pretty cool. Um,
Mm.
nice. Cool. And then final day we had muscle up
Muscle up.
logs. Yeah. What did you think of this one?
Good test again. Like I'm not. We can talk about athlete safety and things like that. Because I think that is sort of defined the narrative for this workout is what happened to Krennikov. Like, was it something that CrossFit did, or was it his inability to do things properly
I
on that
just,
workout?
it's no one's fault. It just happens. It's just sport. I don't think there's that
Yeah,
much of a
yeah,
story to it. People are like, oh,
no,
CrossFit's fault for not giving them, direct lanes to put their bags in. It's Roman's fault because should be more careful going over logs. Like, yeah, I understand both of his points, but it's just racing. It just happens. That's just sport
yeah,
thing. Like, it's just
mm,
unlucky. If he misses it by 2 inches, he's fine. And
yeah,
so I don't know. That's just the way it goes sometimes. But it did suck that happened. But what can you
it
do?
did.
But the workout
Good
itself,
workout though. Yeah,
yeah, good workout. Again, I think both of us was quite surprised. Not surprised, but I don't think we thought the bag would matter as much as it did. I think we
mm,
both thought when it
mm,
first came out, we're like, oh, Emma Lawson's going to extend her lead. Like she's always beaten Laura in ring muscle workouts. It's like, oh, this is where Roman falters a bit, and then it just ended up being way more weighted towards the sandbag. Obviously,
yeah,
the muscle ups did matter, but for some, just not as much as the bag. I think this is like disguised. There's a bit of running in there. Obviously, not proper running
mm,
that you would like traditional running, but moving the bag. Those sections aren't short. Those sections are a good 40, 50 feet from log to log. So you're carrying the bag, 3 of those, chucking it over each one, doing an extra sandbag clean, and it's what, 5 rounds? So you're doing
mm,
so you're doing 15 sandbag cleans in there, plus chucking it, plus going over the log, and then when you run back, that's another 150 feet back to the thing. So there's a bit more going on than just on paper muscle ups and chucking a bag over something. So it got a bit more gassy.
sneaky work
Yeah,
is what I'd call it.
pretty
It
much.
all creeps up on you, right?
Yeah. But yeah,
Mm.
so no, I think good workout again, more pulling. I was like, okay, just more stuff, but yeah, pretty standard.
Don't worry, don't worry. You don't get any pulling in the next event, so it's fine.
I couldn't believe it when I saw that workout. But yeah, fine. Second last event, we had the parallel bars and the sled pull with the double unders. I mean, again, I think it's very. I think this is a very Castro workout. I know the
Mm.
parallel bars are in there, but sled pull just screams Castro with the heavy dubs. And yeah, I mean, I thought the sled was going to be heavy. So when I remember messaging you, it's like the sled looks heavy. It's because both sleds were next to each other, and so from my position,
Right.
I was like,
They
they're going to
looked on
pull
top of
like
each other, right?
1,000 pounds right now, like across the floor. I was like, how's this going to work? And then I realized it's two separate ones they're going to pull. But yeah, I think it's a good workout. I like the high rounds and like shorter reps, high turnover nature of it, which is
Yeah, yeah.
quite cool. So like less bottleneck, just still it's more like gassy. The only
Mhm.
thing I wish I had was some dips, maybe even just 8 rounds. I think 10 dips would be too much per round. Even like 6 dips before the start of the traverse each time would be hard enough. Like add up
Yeah,
by the end of the workout, just to get some more
because
pressing in there in a different way. But then you argue they did
because
dips in the event
yeah,
earlier with the muscle ups. But I don't know.
but I think you've like the time domains for the final day, and like in all honesty, time domains for the last 5 workouts. So intervals between like 7 and 8 minutes, muscle up
Mm,
logs 7 and 8 minutes, parallel bar pull 7 and 8 minutes, echo thruster final 7 8 minutes. Like they're
mm,
all well 6 to 8 minutes. Like they're all like an exactly similar time domain, and it's exactly what we're talking about the fact that like post Olympic total, like you're probably missing like a shorter workout because you've gone long twice. Um, with ride being 40 odd minutes, and cross country, well, the 5K, sorry, being quite long, picture being quite long as well. And I get that as you get closer to the end, like you want to see faster races and you want to see, you know, events where athletes are is about movement speed and how fast you can do particular things. And I think that's what we started to get here. Um, but it was pretty much determined just by your ability to execute efficiently and fast on the parallel bar. So it was a skill more than anything because you weren't hitting that fatigue point. I think if we had dips, you'd have been hitting that fatigue point. But
yeah.
one pressing movement is too much. But give me more pulling movements. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still like it was quite cool. Again, like in a I think a lot of these workouts, almost all of them, apart from I think the bike's a bit boring, but all of them like in a vacuum are all like really good workouts. But in the context of the overall competition, it did just get a bit too over the top with the pulling. I couldn't actually believe when we
yeah,
saw sleds. I was like, I just couldn't believe more pulling, outrageous. But I got when I first saw the sleds, I got excited. Like, oh, they might do the throwback to whatever the pull and push and pull
yeah.
workout. And then I saw because I saw the dip bars. They might just be doing parallel dips and sled pull. And then
Mm.
obviously they didn't. They just did traverse. But the traverse, I mean, still not easy.
No.
But yeah, right. Okay, last event, the final. This they could have made the sprint as well. They could have just changed the rep scheme. They could have just done 30 cal bike,
Mm.
20 thrusters, 100-foot lunge, and just made it like a
Yeah,
3-minute
yeah.
workout. But they didn't. They just made it like that 6 to 7, 8 minute workout. I mean, again, it's a fine workout. Like it's just classic CrossFitty, bike thrusters. The weight goes up, the reps come down, lunge to the finish. I don't really. It's not a bad workout, but I think I don't know about you, but it's not getting a bit underwhelming. Just the final like 50-50 chance it involves a lunge to the finish, and it's going to be generally classic CrossFit, and it's just like
That's
probably
this
going to have
is this.
thrusters. It's a bit like,
Yeah,
oh, it's always like deflating the last event. You just get jazzed up and then you just see it and it's like, oh, is that really just all it is? But I don't know.
this
It's me.
this workout confirmed for me that Castro was back and was in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Particularly at the end where Boz had announced the women's champion and Dave came out and insisted that he announced the men's champion with a little bit more fanfare, a little bit more showmanship. I think the lunge creates like carrying something over the line and moving over the line. I think is a great way to finish. I think they need to find a new way to do it because an overhead lunge just perpetually happening is just getting a little bit dull at this point. And it's getting even more dull watching Fikowski not be able to pace himself correctly for it.
But yeah,
Anyway,
like, yeah,
yeah, I liked it as an overall test though. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it could have been shorter and a little bit sharper. Really impressive to see like Pepper and Quant just like absolutely rip it. Medeiros coming in third as well was really
yeah.
impressive to finish it strong. as well.
But yeah, well, I mean, this is the type of event that could have gone on a Saturday evening, like because
Yeah,
I think also
yeah,
just when it comes like the Saturday, I feel like it was always more hype because it's not the end of the competition after that event, so everyone's like
yeah,
not getting what's even I don't know what the word is, but like almost a post competition depression kicking in, even in the final event, because it's over after this event. And like, let's be
yeah,
honest, in CrossFit, sometimes the event is basically over by the final event, like it was in this case both times. You pretty much knew Laura wasn't going to lose to Emma on this event. And obviously, the Jeff Adler Roman situation meant Adler was going to win regardless. Because maybe got different thoughts on it. If it ends up they're within 5 points of each other and they're racing at the lunge, and maybe it's like one of the most memorable events we've ever had. And it's really cool. But I don't know. Yeah, it probably didn't help not having an actual race going into it. So they're all just coasting the bike and they're just moseying through the thrusters. But yeah, that was it really. That was the 2023 CrossFit Games programming. Not a bad event. I
Are we
thought a
not? Are we
lot.
not? Are we not going through the teams programming? No.
We do a separate show note if you want. I thought we can talk about the last event. The earthworm was so funny. All
That
the
was
fails.
madness. That was absolutely madness.
People looking like so uncoordinated on the worm. But
yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with the individual programming. Is that like everything in isolation was good. They were good tests, but I think the frustrating part is that was it a well-rounded test? I think we're missing a couple of elements to sort of do that and deliver that. But yeah, I enjoyed the games as a spectacle. I need to sit down and go back and rewatch it just to sort of fully understand things and like sit down and look and see how the people's movements paid off throughout the whole thing. Because I think, yeah, there's definitely would the leaderboards have looked like that with different programming, and if they'd filled those holes in, I don't think so. Had they been given exactly the same test as last year, like I think things would have been very different. And I know it's still CrossFit's thing that the fittest person rises to the top, but yeah, that's always been the case when you've had like exceptional individuals. Like I'd much rather see us look to design a test that determines who is the fittest overall, not just who is the fittest individual. If that makes sense.
I mean, I don't think they missed that much this year. It was just like a lot of pulling. I don't really like. There was a lot of time domains and areas hit. I think the only real thing we actually missed was just a short, sharp one. Don't actually think we missed too much in terms of what to cover. Obviously, some people can say there was no swim, which is a big component, but the only rebuttal I really have to that is like, well, if CrossFit prides itself on being unknown and unknowable, if you have a swim every year, that's pretty knowable. So if it's not every year, then that keeps you guessing. So that'll be my
never guess the next move.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, that's CrossFit for you.
But yeah, no, I think it was good. Should we have a look at some of the Europeans?
Yep.
We'll start on the female side. Obviously, we had Laura win. I think I was happy to see her win. I think she deserved it overall. Like the first, fourth in the final four events was absolutely insane. And she did a Rich Froning, I love Sundays, and just turned up on Sunday and absolutely destroyed. I think she could have won the Echo Thruster if she needed to. But I think from her perspective, it was just a save of the moment type thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, she's a beast. She absolutely just an animal. She's in person, she's very big as well compared to a lot of the girl. Like it just plays into her strength. And again, similar to Roman, she just built for like the games style programming. So now I know she's always has been, but it really doesn't matter what she does in the open or quarters or semis, because if the games continue to look like this, which it does very regularly, she's always going to be up there. But it makes it very exciting for next year when Tia returns, and if Mal comes back into the mix. Not saying that Mal will be like a threat to win, but just that she'll take points away from Laura in some events. Like in that intervals workout, Laura takes 8th. Mal probably wins at a workout like that. Or like it's close to Emma. And Tia probably as well. So it'd be like very like basically if Tia and Mal come back fully fit and ready to go next year. It's going to be very interesting. So, and if the men's side's exciting, it could be next year could possibly be the most exciting games in terms of overall both men and women's field combined, which we've never really had before. So that could be pretty cool.
No, that's very true. Yeah, as the sport grows and grows, you stop having people who are the outliers, which I'm really excited to see. Gabby McGar ended in 4th. I think this is kind of it was quite a sneaky climb up the leaderboard in the final 2 days. She was sitting around about a sort of like just beyond 10th for a while, and I think that was a little bit concerning. But then she was able to put together like a really strong finish, similar to Laura to a degree. Obviously struggled with the parallel bar dip with the pressing, but on the whole looked really, really solid overall.
Actually, you touch on the. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say she's still 100 points off 3rd, but there's separation. There's always a degree of separation. It's just where that line is, really.
Yeah. I was going to say about the Laura Horvath and Emma Lawson thing was that there is a thread going around that if the events were ordered slightly differently because of the point system, Emma would have won. So I'm not saying that's like a bad thing or a good thing, but it does make you think about the cuts and how it affects the rest of the competition and where the events lie in the order. And it does. And people say it doesn't matter. It does matter. So I'll just leave it at that.
It does matter. No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think if we had all 40 competing the whole weekend, we'd have definitely seen some differences. I think if you also play around with their prize money as well, I definitely, in terms of event prize money, I think you see people in in the 30s calling their shot on the big ones, because that's the reason those people are low down is because they have a specialty, right? Like they've been able to get there because they were able to trade off a specialty. But yeah, I think Gabby's looking to solidify a podium push for next year. It's going to be a big gap for her to close, but I think she's on the right trajectory to be able to do that. Obviously, working with Ben Smith and Christoph as well.
Well, add on to that. Obviously, you've got Alex Gazan and Alexis Raptors right behind her. I think all 3 of those could all be fighting for that 3rd place next year. I think if Tia comes back, it's no, she'll probably win, and then Laura and Mal will be fighting for 2nd, and then maybe one of them will fall out, and one of those other. So it could be exciting. That like top 6 could be quite a strong top 6 next year. Oh, we completely overlook Ariel Lowen though again, so she might be up there as well.
She'll just continue to be consistent. Like I'm not expecting her to get any event wins. But if she's able to keep like improving all of her weaknesses, then like if she turns her anything that's in the teens, like if she adds on a couple of spots to all of those, like it's gonna be flying. Obviously, Katrin does have an American flag next to her, but she is British. Not British. Icelandic.
British. I was like, I don't know about that one.
Oh, I think her dad's from the UK. Anyway, she had a really strong weekend. Like I think we all sort of expected this coming in. And it is a very topsy-turvy first couple of events. A 4th, a 34th, a 6th, a 34th. But yeah, it was a really good set of events for her, and she looked like the Katrin of old to a degree.
Yeah, if you had told me she was going to be the highest finish out of all the hard work pays off athletes, I'd be like, oh, that's like, oh, I wonder what's
Katrin doing on the podium. Yeah.
But yeah, very solid. She had a very good finish. She went 2nd, 9th, 20th, 9th, 7th, 2nd. So it was a good back end to the competition when the points are a bit more valuable as well. So that helps bump you up a bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, scrolling down, we had Emma Toole in 11th. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I kind of expected her to jump up a little bit. She had a couple of outlier events. Helena I'd expected to do a little bit better at. But Helena and the 5K, she was 23rd on both. I think that's kind of reflective of her overall running capacity. She's much better in the gym. Taking an event win on Alpaca Redux is ridiculously impressive. Showcasing that sort of legless rope climb strength is really, really strong. but she does have some holes. 36th in inverted medley is not ideal, to say the least. But that was then able to put together a really strong series of events for the rest of the weekend. So if she's able to sort of get a little bit better at the freestanding handstand push-ups, I think she's good. She's good to go. She is getting a little bit older at 31, but I think she's been improving fairly gradually year on year. And obviously, we'll see how qualifying happens in next year for the European semi-final. But she should be able to make it back fairly easily and improve and push into the top 10.
Cool. Obviously, we touched on Annie earlier in 13th. As you said, just looked like she was happy to be there. Didn't look too fussed about fighting for a top spot. Pretty solid once again. I don't
Her
really
highest finish was 7th.
Yeah, a lot of her scores were literally just in the teens, basically.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah. The whole time. Yeah. Go on then.
Karen Freyova kind of thought would do a little bit better overall. Given I think so, we've spoken about the fact there was no barbell. We've spoken about that workouts are quite heavy, but then quite rightly you've turned around and said, well, like every time there was something heavy, it was paired with a gymnastics workout, right? Or a gymnastics skill. And she just wasn't able to sort of capitalize on that. So Pig Shipper, as an example, is kind of something you'd expect her to do really, really well at. But 1756, 22nd in a field of 40 at that time. And yeah, she really couldn't get into gear. She finished third in the Olympic total. So
it was just the Pig Chipper and inverted medley. She came 35th in inverted medley. So just her gymnastic skill that cost her probably a top 10 basically. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Elisa
Fuliano 20th. Smashed
I
the
think
inverted medley, which was not too surprising. And then just had a mixed bag the rest of the event, really.
Yeah, she is quite small, so that's why she didn't do as well in the final. But obviously, she was cut last year, and she's improved massively to get to 20th this year. So I think she's done very well. I was able to trade off her skill set as well. Then Rebecca Vitterson in 25th. It was obviously her first year at the games as an individual. Put together a solid showing, fairly a decent majority of her performances were around about that sort of 20th mark. I'd expect to see her sort of on the fringes. I think now that CrossFit is becoming more and more competitive at the semi-final stage, I think you're going to have these people who come in for 1 year and then potentially miss out the next year. You're not going to have you always used to have these bankers who would come in. I think they said this year was like one of the highest percentages of rookies ever, right? So I expect that to continue as things get more and more competitive, as people's lives, if we look at Amanda Barnhart just above her in 24th, start to interfere with stuff as well. Moving on down, another rookie, Ella Vunga, finished in 34th. Probably about where she expected to be. She did have a 4th place finish in ski bag, so shows that she's got some really strong capacity and some really strong strengths. But a 40th in inverted medley, I think she even struggled to get over the ramp. So that's a big hole that probably needs addressing in the off season for her. My rookie of the year prediction for the women, Manon Anganese in 35th, so that went down a storm. It's her first experience at the games, her first experience at a relatively high level competition. I think just getting exposed to those things outside the gym is pretty new for her. She's working with no shortcuts. I imagine she will not be taking any shortcuts in her preparation for next year's semi-finals. Thank you. I'm here all week. And then lowest placing ended up being Emma McQuaid. on the women's side. Obviously struggled with injury throughout. So yeah, it was a little bit difficult for her to really make an impact. I think she was carrying an injury coming in. So yeah, obviously frustrating for her to not be able to push out the weekend. And she is 33 now, but she's always shown great capacity and great sort of drive and determination to do really, really well. Hopefully see her back on the stage next year and she's able to put in a really strong performance. Particularly when you've got Sam Briggs as your coach. It's always fun. Any comment on any of those?
No, I mean, I was quite surprised that those names at the back end didn't do as well, as we might have thought, and like grouped together weirdly as well, like in the low 30s. But I don't know, just sometimes just the way it goes. But yeah, right, on to the men.
Our highest placing European, our king of Europe, is Jonakowski.
I mean, he just yo-yos, doesn't he? He's either top 10 or he's just outside the top 10. That's pretty much the way it goes.
So I kind of want to contest this. But yeah, no, you are right. Cut 9th, withdrawn 9th, cut 7th, 6th. But that was online games. 15th, 6th. I think if he is able to be healthy, he'll do really well. So Sid last year as a prime example, he wasn't healthy, ended up having to go through the last chance qualifier, came first in the last chance qualifier. Like he's a great athlete, but then was only able to get 15th at the games. Obviously, with a shortened preparation cycle coming off an injury, like makes sense. But yeah, really good athlete. Only 28.
Yeah,
absolutely insane that he's still only 28.
He's been around for so long, and he's still that young. It's just mental. It's like Sam Quan as well. Been around since the beginning of time, and he's only like 20. How old is Sam Quan? Like 28 as well. He's not old. He might even be younger. No. He might be like 27 or something. He's not old.
He's 27.
Yeah. There you go. Crazy.
Yeah. Lazar Dukic continues to be the 9th first man in the world. Well, no, sorry. He was 9th in his first year, 8th in his second year, 9th in his third year. Obviously, I think people look at that and just think you're not getting better. You are. The field is improving as time goes on, right? And everyone's getting better. The tests change slightly.
Yeah, and I think he
improved.
Oh, you've lagged.
And he had, I think he was more consistent overall. Obviously, the 35th in the bike really, really hurt him. Had that been a run instead, or run and a swim, we could be talking about a man who had an additional 70 odd points, which would put him in 5th. And it's completely different because it was such a close race from 5th down to 11th. In all honesty, there was only a 60 or 70 point gap between those. And he had some really strong finishes. Didn't really hit anything out of the park, but came second in Pig Chipper and third in Helena, and fourth on the 5K. So no event wins, but he's got some really consistent finishes. His strength's still a weakness, sitting around about 20th on the Olympic total. Next, we come on to the man who should have been Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, no, he should have.
Jelly Toast. Sorry, I was expecting you to jump in there. Jelly Toast or Yellow Hoster. Jelly Man.
No, I forgot. Yeah, scammed.
Yeah, completely. Again, it looks like Fikowski's first year, just with slightly lower place finishings, I think. He had some really strong events, 6th, 4th, first.
I wouldn't go that far to say it was like a Fikowski's first year. Fikowski got a few more event wins, and was like a few points out of getting 3rd in his rookie year. I think that's more disrespect.
I did say lower down. I did say lower down.
You did. I don't know. That's a stretch. Just because
he was 71 points off. He was 71. And he does not move as well as Fikowski. I don't know whether you watched his snatch, but that was a tough watch.
There was a lot of people lifting. It was a tough watch. He wasn't the only one. Shout out Bay Rail power cleaning in a max lift event. I was like, what are you doing?
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, no,
he had the muscle up logs. I was really impressed with as well. Obviously, his height came
mm,
through and really helped him on that. But to be able to hold on to that muscle up capacity is really good for a guy his size, and I think bodes well. 17th on the parallel bar pull. I think if he's able to train more for the games now, I think we'll start to see him separate a little bit more, and they're able to sort of climb up the leaderboard. But because
mm,
obviously his major struggle has been getting to the games, it's that classic, his classic issue, and I think his strength needs a lot of improvement as well, much like everybody from Europe.
yeah.
But yeah, good to see him performing well, and good to see some fresh blood at the young old age of 28 as well, coming into the sport from Europe.
Oh dear. But yeah, in
Considering,
11th we
considering,
had.
considering I'm turning 30 next week, I'm still sort of holding out hope of maybe making it one day. BKG in 11th,
Yeah.
I think we referenced his back issue. Had that not happened, I think we'd be in a very different. We'd be having different conversations. We've highlighted how close that group was. Sort of, obviously, technically, Krennikov, Vellner, and Adler had like properly separated themselves from the chasing pack. But I think we kind of expected BKG to sort of be leading that charge and being around the top 5. The fact he's able to get an 11th with that injury is ridiculously impressive.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Yeah, like literally no back. Didn't even do an event. Basically, just sat it out. It's quite funny. He only finished 2 spots behind Yellow Hosta in that event, and he lifted almost 400 pounds less than him. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
it was a sad way for his streak though to end with top 10s, but
yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah, but yeah, still crazy impressive.
And then rounding out the European field in the top 20, Aldous Upiniks, 20th. Kind of what I expect from him. I expected him to do better on the run. Like, I thought he was a good runner. And I expect him to do better on Helena as well.
I mean, 8th is good. I think you just distorted because last year he just couldn't jerk, so he just ran faster than everyone else.
No, but I've seen him do other events where he's done really, really well on the running. But obviously that's not a games
like which
field,
ones?
So.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like which.
Don't
base it off Euro champs 2022, whatever it was. The 5K into a paddle.
Sorry, I'll go out and find some actual evidence to support my claims next time.
Because last year obviously smashed everyone the shuttle runs, but it's because he just didn't bother to do any jerks, so he just ran.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's pretty standard finish for him.
Yeah.
And then Maurice, I mean, had a bit of a backwards fall after a very good start, and then just didn't go well.
Yeah. I expected more from him.
Like he died in Alpaca, 35th.
Too hot.
Yeah, well, we just probably just blew up on the rope climbs. Actually,
he
had a tough day too. 35th, 10th, 35th. That's or 18th. Sorry, 35th, 18th, 35th. That's not going to get it done.
No.
So
no,
I think he was like 3rd after day 1 or something stupid, like 3rd or 4th.
He was in top 5.
Yeah, and he fell back quite a much in day 2.
And then day 3, 28th, 29th, 4th.
Interesting.
Lovely like 20, it feels like 29th on intervals just feels like that's how much do you want it. I think he kind of knew at that point and just went,
he didn't want it.
Go heavy. He didn't want it.
That's a field of 30 as well. That's
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
And then got upstaged on the lift anyway because you've got Jack Farlow and Bron. Fabi Benito. So obviously that was Moritz's second year. He is improving year on year. I think he was 38th, 39th last year. Had a back issue. but and has improved this year and was able to showcase some really strong finishes. So naturally, it's just bringing everything else up to the same level. I think he should be able to do that. Fabi did well-ish, like a little bit more consistent than Moritz. He wasn't so much all over the place, but did have some really poor finishes. A 38th in the pig chipper is tough, followed by a 31st in inverted medley. He normally
and then a 29th in the alpaca. Good run of events. That.
yeah, didn't go great for him. But 6th in the Olympic total, so he's got that to trade off. This was his first year. He's still only 27. Having seen him win Dubai in the off season, kind of was expecting a little bit more from him. Definitely to try and like make it through that final cut, but just didn't have it. See if he can improve on the stuff outside the gym going into next season, and that should sort of help to elevate his overall position. Henrik Apolainen, I sort of had as he probably should be top 20, having come second in semi-finals, but clearly it sort of gives credence to the idea that we just need to ignore semi-finals. Semi-finals don't matter. I expected him to build and come in a little bit better. He's a little bit of a bigger athlete, which I tend to think does a little bit better on the pulling, but he was 18th in his first year in 21, 24th last year, and was able to sort of maintain that going into this year. But I don't think that's like, yes, he's stayed consistent, but I do expect him to jump up a little bit more.
Yep.
Lost you. Are you back?
Oh, I'm back.
Cool. Bron.
I mean, it's pretty much what you expect from him, really.
Yeah.
Started
Second time at
bad on the
games.
bike, and then bad on. I was quite surprised in inverted medley he was that bad. I thought he was a bit better on his hands. He I think he came like second in that sprint chipper I talked about earlier, the handstand walk one from 2019.
Yeah.
But maybe he's just better endurance wise and actual skill wise. Maybe he just can't do the pullovers. And then he took a 39th on Helena, but yeah, that's interesting.
I think it was and then a 30, and then a 30th on the 5K, well, the 4.5K, 24th on intervals, and then didn't even win the lift. So it's quite disappointing, isn't it?
I'm not gonna lie, this is how bad Hopper was. I've just looked at Bron's like scores for 6 events, the first 6. Bron went 30th, 18th, 33rd, 17th, 5th, 39th, and Hopper didn't even finish ahead of him. I'm sorry, but what was going on with that guy?
Yeah, Bron only got through because of the 5th. That 5th place makes such a big difference.
Yeah, what the heck happened? My goodness, I cannot believe it. That shook me up. Yeah, cool. All right, 29th, we had David Sharonki. I mean, were we expecting a higher finish than that? I think he did pretty well for his ability and what the tests were. I mean, he was pretty consistent and just had one good finish in alpaca. Like, the 5th is very good in that event.
Yeah, really, really good, really good.
And then
he's a strong legless rope climber, and because he's a bigger guy, like he's able to move those kettlebells fairly effectively. It's good to see the British flag out there. Obviously, the only British individual on the male or female side.
Well, in the main individual.
In the individual.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that reminder.
No worries.
Yeah. Like, obviously he's training healthy now. He's had a couple of years with some injuries. I'm guessing he'll be pushing to make the comeback for next year. Didn't make it through that final cut, but yeah, don't really have much to add to that.
Yeah. There's like a video of him circulating of him like taking it in when he was walking off the floor after the lifting event. So maybe he knows he might not even make it back. So could have been one time, but you never know. We shall see what happens next year.
And then the final placing European was Michal Wieselowski.
Not Michael
Yeah.
Wazowski, as the commentator called him.
Mike, did he actually call him Mike Wazowski?
Honestly, the on-floor pronunciation of some names was
Bad.
bad. That's come from me. So
Well, let's hope that we finally leave the Americas and we can come to Europe where people know how to pronounce things.
Kiki Dixon was putting in an absolute shift on the floor, and it was just, I mean, A star for effort, C for execution.
Is it A star for effort where I don't think it's meritocracy that got her that job. I think she's just been there for like 10 years at this point. So they just yeah, we'll bring Kiki back. Yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah, like I wasn't expecting much more, if I'm honest. I think he was the last qualified place coming out. And similar, he wasn't able to make the difference on stuff outside the gym. So yeah, all credit to him for making it out there, and would have been nice to see him do a full weekend. Would have been nice to see the majority of the guys do a full weekend as well. But here we are.
He had 2 back-to-back lasts. I know, like they're 39s, but obviously Jason Smith wasn't in the field. That's tough. That's you end the day with a dead last finish. You start the next day with a dead last finish. That bounce back ability.
It's not non-existent, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, that's it really. Anything else to add?
Yeah.
That's the summary of the 2023 games. Obviously, it's a bit of a lull now until Rogue, and that's end of October. So we've got a few weeks till then still. I'm sure we can cook up some fun little shows covering different topics. Creating a business plan for CrossFit. That might be a good one. But yeah, we could do some different. We might put a little poll out on the Instagram, see what people who want us to talk about.
Give the
maybe
people what they want to hear. We'll also do a poll on what we think Mr. Hosking's forfeit should be for losing the predictions test.
Yeah, we'll make it. Well, yeah, we'll see. You can put a few ideas out. I'm not too fussed. Just put something out there.
20-minute EMOM of 15 cal row, 80 double unders.
That's fine. That's I can assure you that's not the limitation. That'll be Gucci. But yeah, we'll do something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, don't really know what else to add. Where do you think the games is going?
I think we've seen it, haven't we?
Oh, I haven't watched the rest of the barbell spin episode. I think they were going to talk about it, but I've not seen where's it going. I just heard it was either Texas or Florida, but I might be wrong.
Let me have a look. I think I saw somebody post it because they got a ticket notification about the games for next year, and it was
really,
yeah.
Can't be that memorable then if you were struggling to remember.
I think it was San Antonio, Texas.
Right,
San Antonio in Texas.
Fair enough. So it's probably Texas. Yeah. It's a bit odd that they're doing both major events in like I would say Rogue is the second major event now. So both in Texas, but
taxes, mate. Taxes.
Yeah, that's to say, like financially makes sense. So if they can afford to do it there and they can put on a good show, it doesn't matter too much. But I love how they're moaning about Madison being hot. I'm pretty sure Texas is going to be even hotter. So
yep. Yeah. Well, like hopefully what it means is that it works out a little bit better for us in that all the events will have to be very early in the morning or very late at night.
Well, if they're late at night, it doesn't work out well for us.
But you can watch them in the morning.
Won't be staying up till But yeah, true. We shall see. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I quite like watching it during the day. So, not day, but it's like 6 o'clock here, I suppose, when the main events are starting.
Yeah. It definitely means I'm slightly more productive and I can just wipe out my evening as opposed to what happens when it's on a similar time zone and it like the Ashes, for example. Starting at 11 o'clock in the day, I get maybe 2 hours of work done before.
Yeah, true. And also, it depends if they're getting rid of the age groups and the teens and all that jazz.
Yeah, very true.
Separate which is not a bad thing, just separate competitions, but it will definitely affect the on-site experience, I think.
Yeah,
That
100%,
loses the
100%.
festival. If teams, I wonder if they do teams as well. If I want, maybe I wonder if they scrap that and make that a separate thing. Who knows? Because
Separate competition potentially in the off season, which means you can get more individuals doing it. I think that'd be very interesting.
yeah, but then, yeah, they could do that. But then if it's in the off season, there wouldn't be class. People wouldn't class it as like, you
No.
know, the biggest team event, like to crown the fittest team. But yeah, we shall see. Lots of changes again. Go CrossFit. Will we go through
It's
3
another,
years of
yeah,
it being the same? I think we have had a 3-year spell, because you could argue 16, 17, 18 was the most normal 3-year spell, but we still changed
yeah,
venues. So are we going to go through
yeah.
3 years where nothing changes and the venue stays the same and all? But I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, I'd agree.
But hey, it's part of the brand. Unknown and knowable, constantly varied. That's the business model. That's the way it goes. So you can't fault the business culture. They are true to
No.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they very much are.
yeah, can't fault them. Cool. Right, that's it for this week. We shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.